Welcome to the Deep Dive, where we take your raw sources, dig right in, and pull out the most compelling insights. Today, we're looking at something, well, pretty unique, I think. Fascinating stuff, live recordings from Twitter Spaces.
Hmm.
So this isn't, a polished interview or some formal report. It's raw, it's unfiltered conversation happening, like, right now.
Exactly. It's like this dynamic digital town square. You've got experts, regular folks, all just mixing it up, sharing thoughts, experiences live.
Yeah.
It's like a microcosm of our modern world just playing out there.
Right. And our mission with this deep dive is really to explore that whole dynamic world.
Yeah.
We want to delve into the personalities you find, the sometimes unexpected ways people interact, how they build trust, and also how these big, messy, complex issues just sort of bubble up in these really candid online forums.
Yeah, and this particular deep dive, it comes from a Twitter space hosted by Alberto Daniel Hill. He is a prominent cybersecurity professional based in Uruguay.
Okay.
And he is incredibly active, hosted something like 1,920 spaces and spoken in 19, just in the last 30 days, so
Yeah.
more prolific.
He's known as an answer host, kind of a mentor figure in cybersecurity. But, his spaces clearly become platforms for way broader discussions, too.
And you'll hear that. These raw discussions, they cover everything from the nuts and bolts of digital tools, their side effects, to these bold, sometimes funny, sometimes pretty serious talks about privacy, ethics, accountability, who's responsible.
Right.
It just highlights how tangled up our digital lives are with, well, everything else. Politics, personal stories, global worries, you name it.
And what's so fascinating here, I think, is how these platforms become these really intense discussion forums.
Mm.
You get such a candid look at how complex topics and just human nature and technology all get tangled together online.
It's not just what they said, is it?
No, exactly, is how they said it. What that tells us about, reputation, credibility in these super fast-paced digital spaces. So we want to help you understand what really stands out in these interactions and maybe what it all means for your own digital life. Okay, then.
Let's unpack this.
Right. Let's jump straight into that dynamic, the flow of these spaces.
Mm.
Because one of the first things that jumps out about Alberto Daniel Hill's hosting style is this. Almost radical transparency he seems to have. He talks about openly admitting his flaws, right? Even on a live recording.
Yeah.
How does that kind of transparency actually change things, like the trust dynamic online?
That's a really crucial point. He uses it almost like a benchmark. He'll even challenge participants, if they seem a bit cagey, not answering directly.
Yeah.
He sees it as building trust. He contrasts it with his own, immediate, unvarnished answers. It's a very direct, very personal way to try and establish credibility right there in the moment. Shows he's willing to be vulnerable.
And he's not afraid to be a bit playful either, to
Yeah.
get people talking. Like
Huh.
titling one space, "This is my last space and I will be leaving."
Yeah. Which he later admitted was just, fishing for engagement.
A bit cheeky.
Totally. And it worked, right? People jumped in immediately. What happened? Why are you leaving?
Right.
That kind of playful thing, it's not just clickbait. It shows how hosts in these raw, informal settings can kind of leverage urgency or even perceived vulnerability to build a connection really fast and get people participating. It blurs that line between maybe performance and real interaction.
Yeah, and it shows a bit of his personality, too.
Mm.
Playful, maybe a little mischievous.
Definitely.
So these tactics, they kind of set the stage for how he builds rapport. Let's look at how that dynamic played out with some of the different people who joined his spaces.
Mm-hmm.
We heard from a 22-year-old cybersecurity student from Nigeria, for instance.
Yes, that was
Yeah.
a great example of Alberto stepping into that mentor role. The student was asking for career advice, right?
Yeah.
Specifically about digital forensics. And Alberto, he didn't just give general advice. He shared his own past experience in forensics, working on criminal cases, that sort of thing. But he also broke down the core principles, preserving evidence, chain of custody, avoiding contamination, real foundational stuff.
And practical, too. He pointed the student to specific resources, like OWASP.
Yep, the Open Web Application Security Project.
Yeah.
Big standard in web security.
And free courses on Udemy.
Right. And he also asked about job opportunities in Nigeria, showed real interest in the students' actual context, the challenges they mentioned, like that toxic environment comment.
Yeah, connecting the big picture expertise to the individual situation.
Exactly. And it wasn't just technical either. He touched on the human side, asked if the student had family, kids, Because, and he put it very directly, sometimes you're doing things that, yeah, can affect you or your family, like happened with me, that, yeah, for doing a responsible disclosure, trying to help, I ended up in prison.
Wow. That's incredibly personal.
It is a very stark warning about real-world risks in this field. Sharing that vulnerability, that immediately builds a much deeper level of trust.
Okay, so that's one dynamic. Then things shifted quite a bit with another participant, Thomas, 52, from California. This conversation felt different, more personal, kind of meandering.
Yeah, what stood out there was how fast the chat went from talking about cyber tools to, well, personal stories. And Thomas identifying that background Windows sound, the USB plugging in and out.
Oh, yeah, I remember
But
that.
nobody else noticed. That's not just like good hearing. It shows that deep, almost instinctive tech fluency you get from decades of experience.
Right.
And that becomes its own kind of like social currency in these spaces, the instant credibility signal.
And that just opened up this whole rabbit hole, didn't it? Operating systems, Linux, Windows, VM.
Virtual machines, yeah.
Yeah.
Software computers inside real computers.
And old Linux distros like Backtrack, Kali, stuff used for cybersecurity tests. It felt less like advice, more like reminiscing, shared tech history.
Exactly. Complaining about how drivers used to be a pain in the ass, how much easier Linux installs are now. A real sense of shared nostalgia and some candid admissions, too, like falling behind in IT over the last decade.
Yeah.
It shows how fluid expertise is, how fast tech changes. But then it got really personal. Thomas talking about living alone, his dog passing, family issues. And Alberto shared his own story back about losing everything. It just underlines how these spaces can become places for really profound human connection beyond the stated topic.
That level of personal sharing, it definitely builds unique connections, but it also means these spaces can attract some unexpected stuff. Even ethically murky questions, like that moment Alberto got a DM, a direct message,
Yeah.
asking for hypothetical advice on how to profit from a stolen, like, $5 million credit card.
Right, and what's fascinating is how he handled it. He immediately shut down the illegal aspect. Free vacations in prison, he called it.
Good line.
But then he hypothetically discussed how a criminal actually would use it. Reselling expensive items fast, using the dark web, not buying obvious things like a truck or a house. So he used it as a teachable moment about the realities of cybercrime. It showed a kind of a nuanced way to handle a tricky question without condoning it, maintaining a boundary but still engaging.
Yeah, it shows the range of stuff people will ask in that kind of open forum.
Yeah.
Then another new voice joined, a 25-year-old software engineer, also from Nigeria.
Right, another mentorship moment, but with a slightly different angle. This participant said their motivation for getting into cybersecurity was to reduce the rate of cybercrime.
Which Alberto praised, right, called it a great reason.
Yeah, and he advised them to specialize, given their software background, focus on web application security. It really highlights how, individual purpose can drive people into these fields and discussions.
And again, practical steps. Check OWASP, look into the CEH certification.
Certified ethical hacker. Common industry cert.
And using AI. He called AI a very best friend for support.
A clear roadmap. And emphasizing that continuous learning aspect, which is huge in cybersecurity.
You will never have to stop learning because these things are evolving and changing all the time. Yeah, that definitely came through.
Then there was that particularly long and quite personal exchange with a participant named Kimber Rito that really got into the weeds of online relationships and trust, didn't it?
It did. Started with Kimberito calling Alberto out on his last space joke. And then it spiraled into this whole thing about blocking people on Twitter being a form of love. Or
Not.
love.
Alberto joking that Kimberito was the most blocked and therefore the most loved.
It's that kind of playful banter, right?
Yeah.
Shows how these long-term online connections develop their own, inside jokes and language.
It's a very intimate, kind of humorous dynamic. Really shows how complex online interactions get when personalities, clash or connect over time. It went into really personal details, didn't it? Even dreams.
Oh, yeah. Alberto guessing Kimberito's dreams were wild, weird, and pretty confusing.
That kind of casual, intimate sharing, it can build a really strong sense of community. Blurs the line between just being a digital acquaintance and maybe something closer.
And that comfort with personal sharing leads right into the broader topic of online identity, persona, which they explored in some really fascinating ways, like the discussion about profile pictures, how much thought goes into them.
Oh, absolutely. That example of the actor paying a well-known photographer quite a bit for a specific black and white photo.
Yeah, to convey a very specific, almost nostalgic message.
It's not just vanity, right? It shows the serious investment people make in curating how they appear online, that digital first impression.
Hmm.
It's often way more strategic than how we present ourselves face to face.
And the psychology behind it. Black and white, triggering nostalgia, forcing focus on form, texture.
Avoiding the emotional noise of color, yeah.
Someone even brought up green being the worst color for conveying a clear message. Because we evolved to see so many shades of it, it's subconsciously distracting.
It is fascinating the level of thought behind these subtle signals we send online.
Hmm.
And then there was that whole idea of self-identification, how fluid it can be online. Remember the speaker who first said they were a hacker, but later just called themselves a model almost dismissively?
Yeah. It sparked a debate, didn't it? Like, if you've been deep into computers for 20 years, is it just a hobby? Like football is for some hackers.
Or is it part of your core identity, your expertise? Where is that line between a passionate hobby and a defining skill online? Especially when people are constantly, redefining themselves with labels.
These Twitter spaces really are a microcosm, aren't they?
Hmm.
Our digital lives in miniature. Messy, candid, unpredictable human interactions, all filtered through technology.
Yep.
Allowing for these deep personal connections right alongside public debates and, well, self-reinvention.
Absolutely. And it highlights the value of deep expertise too, but also the challenges. Like, how do you communicate that expertise when info gets repeated constantly, or maybe credit gets stolen by louder accounts?
That's a huge issue.
It ties into bigger things too. AI, automating IT jobs, pushing people maybe towards physical trades, the need to run AI locally to protect your data. It's all connected.
So what does this all really mean then? This journey through this raw conversation in a Twitter space. It really has shown us a unique window into our modern information world. We've touched on the hard realities of digital security, the ethical tightrope with AI, and crucially, how human personality, trust, reputation, how it all plays out in these online arenas.
Yeah, and if you connect that to the bigger picture, from massive government agencies all the way down to us, individual users, that line between public and private, truth and deception, it just feels constantly blurry, doesn't it?
It really does.
It really emphasizes that old saying, if the product is free, then you're the product.
Yeah. It just hammers home how much we need to be vigilant,
Mm.
how much critical thinking is needed just to, navigate daily life online.
You really do. And this raises a really important question, I think. Something for you to chew on as you go about your own digital life. How do you actually decide who to trust? Especially when information comes from sources you can't always see, or from powerful figures who weren't elected, or even from an AI that's literally programmed to persuade you.
It's a tough one. And maybe even more importantly, what does real accountability even look like in that world? How will your voice, your privacy, your information, how will it be protected when the biggest debates, maybe even decisions, are happening out loud in these fast-paced, sometimes chaotic, digital public squares?